ECU? Do you breathe purple and gold? Are you ready to hoist the colors? Now, time for the most in-depth look at the world of ECU athletics. Welcome in to Hoist the Colors with your host, Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game. Watch the show live on Facebook and at 943thegame.com. Now, here's your host, Stephen Igo.
Welcome in to Hoist the Colors. It is a Wednesday edition of the program. We are one day away from East Carolina taking on Tulsa, back-to-back Thursday night games in front of a national television audience. This one on ESPN, 7:30 Eastern kickoff, 6:30 Central Time. We are broadcasting on 94.3 The Game as well as YouTube, Facebook, and X. Philip Pilkington is producing. Full disclosure from the top, this is a recorded broadcast because I'm currently en route to Tulsa, Oklahoma, so we're having to preview this one do this a day ahead of time. Now, Thursday's show, I'll be broadcasting live from Tulsa as long as technology allows, from a hotel room on a game day broadcast. We'll be joined by Bobby Harwood then. But, Philip, we got to do what we got to do with a weekday show at 12 noon, and makes for a long day of recording on Tuesday, but excited about another Thursday night game.
Yeah, I am too. I'm a little disappointed that 247 Sports does not have a private jet to come pick you up in this afternoon so that you could just do this show, then have a private jet pick you up in about an hour at Pitt Greenville Airport and then fly you to Tulsa. So it's a little weird having to do it on a Tuesday, but look, it's still going to be a good show. We're still going to break it down. It's going to be really good to have Gary Higgins on. Such a great accomplishment by him and the ladies soccer team. And then to move on and have Kevin Monroe, our normal Wednesday guest, is going to be great. And we can still do all of our content as if we were doing this on a Wednesday, even though we're recording on Tuesday and airing on Wednesday. So we want to thank Coach Higgins and Kevin Monroe for being bumped around and being recorded at a weird hour. But, hey, you know what? Props to them. And here we are. I got to be in the studio regardless. So I'm here. So it is what it is. You're
just always here, and you never get to leave. You actually, the only time you get to leave was this past weekend for Colorado. So, appreciate
full
your
disclosure,
support.
I sleep here. So, if I'm not traveling, I actually sleep. We have a little couch out front, and I just stay there.
It's but it's well worth it, right? Because when you love what you do, it's not a day of work.
Exactly.
It's just that it is your life now. ECU Tulsa. How are we feeling about this, Philip? What are your vibes?
Good. I really am. I think the energy's there. We kind of talked about this yesterday. We were worried about an energy fall from game 1 to game 2. Didn't see it. Hearing them come off the practice field yesterday, just the look in the eye of Parker Moore and Chad Stevens when we talked to them, it's still there. Coordinator and coordinator/head coach seemed very ready, motivated. Everybody is. They know what's at stake. They know this is going to be the last game they're probably going to be favored in, and it's an opportunity to go get a bowl game, and they're all in it for themselves, and they want to win, but they're best definitely in it for this senior class. Coaching staff, the younger players, they know what it would mean to these seniors who had such a lackluster junior season, and these hardworking young men deserve a bowl game, and that's what this team is going to go out there and get them on Thursday night.
I think I feel pretty good about this game as well. Going off a lot of your points, plenty to play for. This game would worry me more if ECU had already locked up bowl eligibility and then they were going on the road in front of kind of an empty stadium, underdog team. I wouldn't be surprised here if Tulsa plays well. Anytime you have a pitiful performance, which, I mean, they were losing to UAB, which is a bad team, 45-0 in the second quarter, Philip. Usually, like, if a program has some pride, they're going to bounce back from that, and they're off a bye week. So typically, coaching staff has 2 weeks to prepare. Players get 2 weeks to get motivated. They're technically still alive for a bowl at 3-6. I'd be surprised if we don't see a motivated Tulsa team. They're playing at home on national TV. All those things favor Tulsa. But at the end of the day, I think ECU is just a much better football team. And I expect Tulsa to put up some points. We'll talk about their quarterback situation in a minute. We'll talk about their deficiencies in a minute. We'll make some picks on Thursday's show. The spread right now as we record this is at 14.5 in favor of ECU. That seems a little rich to me. ECU Coastal basketball. Coastal was 12 point dogs to ECU. That seemed a little rich. ECU won, but it wasn't that by that margin, obviously. I kind of foresee a similar scenario here. I think ECU ultimately wins, and they might pull away. They might go out and win, 38-21 and cover, or they might win 45-30 and cover. But I just think this will be a bigger dogfight than maybe what people are expecting.
I do not think they win 45-30 and cover. I'm going to go it's either a dogfight and we win but don't cover, or Tulsa just comes out demoralized, flat, and it looks like the FAU game. I think it's one or the other. It's close or it's not. I don't think it's like hey, it was close for a while, we pulled away. I mean, it could be, but still, I think that close for a while pull away things like a 10-point victory or maybe even a 14-point victory. It's a one score becomes two scores late. I don't think it's a two scores becomes three late. If it's a blowout, it's a blowout from the jump.
Tulsa has some major deficiencies, so that is certainly possible. From a ratings perspective, Pro Football Focus, some will call them that. Pro Football Focus ranks Tulsa 120th out of 134 teams in overall grade. In coverage, defensive coverage, this is obviously the grade. A lot of this is subjective, but also assigned to players. Basically, if you're close to a guy who's catching the football, you're going to get a good coverage grade. If you're nowhere near somebody, you're going to get a bad coverage grade. Tulsa, let's keep in mind here, the 0 to 100 scale that Pro Football Focus uses, 60 is replacement level. As a team, Tulsa is grading out in coverage 45.8, which is the second lowest number in the country, 133 out of 134 teams, trailing only Mississippi State. I don't know what Mississippi State is doing in Starkville, but they have really struggled to stop the pass. If you look at their pass efficiency defensive numbers, they are dead last in college football. They actually stop the run pretty well, and they have some decent pass rushers, but they cannot cover. Their special teams have struggled. Their run blocking has struggled. Their pass protection ranks in the bottom 100s in the country. So this is just a team, Phillip, that has a lot of deficiencies. I do like Kevin Wilson, former Ohio State OC, former Indiana head coach. I think he's a good offensive mind, but this is just a game where I think if ECU plays their best, they're going to be able to score some points.
They should be able to. And, the evolution of the deep ball in this East Carolina offense has been very prevalent over the last 2 weeks. And if they're bad in coverage, that is going to open up those deep balls. And so, you know what? Hey, you know what? Maybe they realize that East Carolina does that, and they start running quarters or they start running cover three, and then that's going to open things underneath. And if you get the ball in the hands of Jari Patterson, Anthony Smith, guys like that, even these tight ends, even Tyler Savage, look, if they get the football, they're going to make the first guy miss. And then you're going to have, still, it might not be an explosive play, but it's going to be an 8 to 10 yard gain. And if Caton Hauser, which I really think he can, pick apart a defense that is in any sort of bell technique with the corners like that, ECU will be able to chug a lug down the field successfully and put up points. If they try and play man, look, we're just going to beat them on the back end. Anthony Smith and Winston Wright are going to run by people, and they're going to score touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny, Phil, by looking back at early Hauser in this offense. People were like, well, he's just going to be the dink and dunk quarterback. Remember, we kind of had that notion, and that's what he looked like in the first half against Army and against Charlotte. And now, all of a sudden, all we're seeing is the team throw deep, throw deep, throw deep. So I do think if you get in a situation where Tulsa's like, all right, let's just drop back into coverage, Hauser's kind of proven at this point he can do both. I think he's a guy who can do both. I like that. And ECU's running the ball. And I think all of a sudden you have to take the running game seriously. Tulsa's offense, again, they have got a really good receiver, Camden Benjamin. Not Kelvin Benjamin, but Camden Benjamin starts with a K. He had 6 catches for 143 yards and a touchdown at ECU last year. Kirk Francis, their quarterback, threw for 297 yards and 2 scores last year. He began this year as a starter. Recently got benched for Utah State transfer Cooper Lagasse, I believe is how you pronounce it. And so their coach said on Monday that Kirk Francis had been banged up, was trending upwards. He kind of said that he's looking at maybe playing both in this game. So the quarterback question, I guess, is the biggest concern. Blake Harrell has also said he's not sure if Kevin Wilson, their offensive minded head coach is calling the plays or offensive coordinator Steve Spurrier Jr. So that would be my only concern defensively heading this game for ECU. You don't know exactly what you're going to get.
Yeah, and that, of course, makes it tough. But the interesting thing is anytime you play the Pirate defense, you don't know what you're going to get. Blake can always draw up something new you haven't seen on film, or maybe it is there on film, but it was there 3.5 years ago and you didn't dig back that far. So, yeah, it makes it tough. But look, this defense is going to adapt. There's a lot of high IQ guys on this defense that can adapt. They're ready for all situations, and at least this is late in the season this is happening. It's a lot tougher if this happens week 2, week 3. With this happening in game number 10, you can go out there and there's not a type of offense that are probably going to run that we have not seen. So, yeah, maybe you didn't prep for it a lot this week, but you go, hey, you remember when Team X ran that early in the season and we were successful doing these things? Well, let's just go out there and do what we did early in the season. For the most part, this Pirate defense has stayed healthy, so a lot of offenses, no matter who they're going to see, somebody on the Pirate defense, or most of the Pirate defense players have seen it. Not really worried. Blake Harrell will figure it out. Yeah, maybe there's one bad drive defensively because you get caught off guard, but it won't be that way for 60 minutes.
All right, let's get a break in on the other side. We will come back. We're going to visit with Gary Higgins, the head women's soccer coach. East Carolina off to their first ever NCAA tournament. They will take on South Carolina this Friday. We'll preview the matchup against the Gamecocks, relive the conference tournament championship, and more. This is Hoist the Colors on a Wednesday.
Everything you need to know in the world of ECU athletics. This is Hoist the Colors with Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game.
All right, welcome back in. Hoist the Colors on a Wednesday. Huge soccer match coming up this Friday, Columbia, South Carolina. It'll be a 6 o'clock start in the NCAA tournament. ECU women are heading to take on the South Carolina Gamecocks, and we are joined by Gary Higgins, once again, the women's soccer coach. We've had him on the show multiple times this year, and now very excited to have him on as a conference champion. Coach Higgins, what have your last few days been like since returning from Florida as a champ?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind for sure. Just a lot of travel and a lot of emotions, but I'm just absolutely bursting with pride for my team and my players and my staff and the senior class. Just couldn't be more proud of them all for everything that they've done and how committed they've been throughout the whole season, but especially this last month or so. They've just really dug in and worked so hard for ECU women's soccer, and I just couldn't be more proud.
Let's take a look before we take a glance at the Gamecocks and talk about the tournament. I just want to go down the path through the conference championship with you, Coach, and kind of start with each game because they were so unique. Obviously, maybe not extremely unique to you guys' style, tough, hard-nosed, low defensive soccer. But let's start first with that Charlotte game in the opening round. You guys win in double overtime and get the game-winning goal from Erica Roberts, who came in as a substitute. So take us through that game and getting off on the right foot to start the tournament.
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, I think we have beat the three best soccer teams in the American Conference, and what I mean by that in terms of like the way they play. So even Charlotte, obviously USF and Memphis are traditionally the two best in the conference by far, but even Charlotte, from a soccer standpoint, they play a really possessive style of soccer and focus a lot on possession. So we've had to beat three really good teams. But yeah, I think everyone knew how important that first game was for us just because of what happened last year. Like, we were in contention to win a regular season championship and we lost to Charlotte on the last game of the season, and then obviously they gave us a really devastating loss in the conference tournament last year. So from a motivational standpoint, it was a very easy team talk, and the girls were so focused to kind of get some revenge there. But then tactically, obviously, you have to execute tactically and technically on top of being motivated. So I thought the girls done really well on that. It was a pretty even game. We had some chances, they had some chances, but we work a lot on sports psychology and being really mentally tough in the difficult moments, and we came to life in overtime and got that win, and Erica came off the bench and a few other people came off the bench and really made an impact. So that was a massive momentum boost heading into the next game.
You go on to take on South Florida. You mentioned very talented team. They had defeated you guys in Greenville back on October 10th, 3-0. And so going into that game, Coach, just kind of what was the mindset? And, obviously you end up getting into a penalty kick situation. I also want to ask you, like, that's not obviously a situation you're going to face in the regular season, I assume, as you end in a draw. So how much are you practicing penalty kicks in those situations heading into a postseason setting?
Yeah, I'll start with that one real quick. So we practice a lot. I think people say penalty kicks are a lottery and it's like 50-50, but I disagree. It's like something that you need to practice and you have to remedy it as much as possible and reenact it as much as possible. Obviously, it will never be the same type of pressure, but you just have to practice your routine. You have to practice your execution and make sure you're getting into good habits in those moments. So we went 5 for 5 against USF, and I truly think it was because the girls were really prepared. And then the sports psychology piece, we handled the pressure of the moment really well. But get into that USF game, we felt good because we had a second chance to, again, right a wrong and get some revenge for what they'd done earlier on in the season. But that game in the regular season was actually, I felt not bad after it. I felt we performed quite well. They caught us against the run of play. Getting in at halftime, they scored with 3 minutes to go before halftime. But if you look at the stats and you watch that game back, we dominated that first half. We had like 7 corner kicks to their 1, and we had a lot of possession in their half of the field, and they just caught us on the break. And then we were obviously chasing the game second half, and they caught us on the break again. So after that game, I was like, oh man, we played quite well, but we lost 3-0. So then getting into that game, we were excited to get a second chance. But what I will say is the first half was decent from us from a defensive standpoint, but I would say they had the better possession and they were dangerous. Second half, they really turned the screw and put a lot of pressure on us. And I'll be honest, we just dug deep and hung in there. And as long as you're keeping it 1-0 in those moments, you can get that equaliser, and we managed to do that. And I was very impressed with USF in the conference tournament. That was probably the best team we've played in terms of how they performed, and we really had to dig deep. But then when it got to overtime, I thought we could hang in there with them and maybe get a chance or two of our own, which we did. But then it went to penalty kicks, and we took care of business. But USF were fantastic on the day.
No doubt. Sometimes you need a little luck as well. The goalie hitting the ball and stopping it, and then it rolls in with the English off getting it stopped there. So huge win for the Pirates. You advance to the championship Sunday against Memphis. We all know how good Memphis is in women's soccer, multiple-time champion. You guys have played them extremely well, though, in recent history, and I'm sure that had to lead to some confidence and leading into overtime and Annabelle Abbott's game winner. Just take us through that one.
Yeah, obviously, Memphis' record speaks for itself and what they've done in conference and in the national tournament, so we knew it was going to be a tough task again, but I thought the girls were amazing in that game. They were tactically so focused and switched on what we had to do. The first half, I thought we actually played really well. We outshot them 7-2. Although they had a lot of the possession, we were really efficient in our defensive shape and then counter-attacking in the right moments. And then, again, second half, Memphis kind of turned the screw a little bit, but we were so disciplined and made their chances really, really difficult. And then overtime, and we had a couple of chances from set pieces, but they definitely had more of the ball second half. And then when it went into overtime, we kept telling them, we've prepared for this, we've been battle tested, we can do this, and they kept on going and got that really important goal from Annabelle Abbott. So, we had to beat 3 really good teams to get here, and I would say we beat 2 really good NCAA tournament teams in USF and Memphis. I think they're a little bit hard done by, maybe not to get one of them in there, and that's going to set us up, hopefully, for success in the national tournament, because we've played some teams that are really at that level.
Gary Higgins is with us, women's soccer head coach in year 3, and we've talked about it, Coach. You really want to make soccer important here. You've obviously done a heck of a job with the program And I know just talking with people around town, they're very proud of what your girls and your staff have accomplished. So I don't know, have you had a chance at all to enjoy it? I know you quick turnaround with the tournament and getting ready for a really good South Carolina team, but the trip home, being welcomed by fans, like, has it kind of soaked in yet what you guys have accomplished?
Yeah, I think obviously the phone's been blowing up, which is really nice. We appreciate all the support and all the nice messages. And then when we came back from Florida, and there was quite a lot of people waiting for us at Johnson Stadium at 11:30 p.m. I'm not going to lie, I got really emotional seeing how happy the girls were in that moment, and that meant a lot to me and my staff and my team. So it was really sweet and really nice to see that, and it was a cool moment, and kind of what Pirate Nation's all about. And obviously, like you mentioned, you and I have had that conversation of wanting to grow the game in the local community, and I'm realistic and understand that we're never going to be as popular as football or baseball in a town like Greenville, but we can certainly try and do our part and improve it a little bit and get more people enjoying the game, and the first step in that is like kind of putting a good product on the field and winning games and winning championships. And now there are players, they're always role models to the younger community, but now they're definitely role models, and people might want to be the next Maeve English, or a little girl might want to be the next Annabelle Abbott scoring the winner in a championship game. So that's what it's all about, in my opinion, and I'm really glad that Pirate Nation is supporting us and enjoying soccer a little bit more.
I wanted to ask you about Annabelle, Coach. I mean, we talked about Maeve on the show quite a bit, but Annabelle Abbott, another 50-year senior, and her first goal of the year at that time. Now she's third most in minutes, obviously plays a significant role defensively for you guys and just all over the field. But, for her to get that goal in that moment, what did that mean to your team?
Yeah, it meant so much, and to see her smile was really cool, and she deserved that moment. Like you said, she's done a really good job defensively in the midfield for us, and doesn't get a lot of statistics and stats, but it's the dirty work that she does for the team to allow other people to be successful. And then obviously she's a talented player, so when she gets in those moments, she can get assists and score goals. And I told her it was a good time to score her first goal of the season, and it's arguably the most important goal in program history. So it was really nice to see her get on the end of that and put it away on her thankfully not her last game in her career, but our last conference game for sure. So that was really cool.
South Carolina is the draw on Friday in the opening round of the NCAA tournament. The Gamecocks went 10-3-7 this year. They will host you guys in the opening round, and I believe y'all played them your first year. So what familiarity do you have with the Gamecocks and the challenge they present?
Yeah, obviously I know a lot about them in terms of like what they've done and how successful they've been in the SEC. Got all the way to the championship game again this year and finished quite high in the regular season. And then they have been at the NCAA tournament the last 15 years or so in a row. So they're an experienced team. They know what it's all about at that level. But I felt we done okay the first time we played them 2 years ago, and we played them at their place. But we're a completely different team now in terms of experience and structure and mentality. So we're excited. I think we prepared well, being undefeated away from home, and played some good teams away from home and done well against them. So we're used to doing well in difficult environments, and that's certainly going to be one because they're a really good team. They've got a really talented coaching staff, and they've also got a very hostile environment with 3,000 to 4,000 fans at their games pretty consistently. So we genuinely really do enjoy that, and not a lot of teams can say that they can enjoy those environments, but we do because we're prepared for it. And that was something that I wanted to change immediately. Obviously, when I first got here, we didn't have a winning away record for a long time, and we'd done that the first year. We had a better one the second year, and then we went undefeated away from home this year. So that's why, is because I wanted to be able to do well in the conference tournament environment, and I want to do well in national tournament environments. And I do think the girls, we might lose the game, we might concede a really good goal, or they might perform really well, South Carolina, but I genuinely don't believe we're going to lose this game because we're intimidated by the environment. I think we're going to be ready for that.
Yeah, I was going to ask, Coach, going off that. I mean, you guys have had so much success away from home. You guys have played top-notch competition, pretty stingy throughout your tenure. And I feel like with you guys' style of play, you got to go into this thing confident. I know that obviously I'm sure the publications will favor South Carolina, but from you guys' perspective with your veteran leadership, I got to imagine you are pretty confident and ready for the challenge.
Yeah, I think the vibes are extremely positive right now, and I told the girls, like, you can't win games just off vibes alone, but it certainly helps. So, like, the togetherness and everyone's enjoying being around one another, and that's 50% of it maybe, and you got to grab onto that, and then you start branching off and focusing on, like, the tactical element and the technical element, and obviously the psychological element. So, yeah, and they've done a great job of that. We've really enjoyed being on the road together, because we ended up being on the road together in Florida for like 11 days, and it wasn't like it was getting stressful or tiring. It was like every other day. We just enjoyed it more and more. So we're hoping we can have more time together and prolong this season even more. And we obviously have to be at our best to beat a team like South Carolina, but we think we can do it, and we're going to go down there and try our best to do it. So we're really excited about the opportunity, but we tried to soak in the celebrations and the happiness and feeling good about ourselves after winning the trophy, but we understand there's going to be plenty of opportunity to do that after the season. So now we're kind of switched our focus on South Carolina and trying to get another win in advance.
Last thing for you, Coach, and we'll get you out of here. Just I know a few days left to prepare, but as you look at the Gamecocks early on, just a few keys to success for your girls going down to Columbia.
Yeah, so obviously we need to stay positive and continue to keep the vibes really, really high, which practice was so much fun this morning. We had an early practice, but everyone was so glad to be back out in Johnson Stadium, so that was cool. And then tactically, we really have to be switched on. This is a well-oiled machine in South Carolina with athletic, talented players all over the field. So you switch off for a second, you can get punished. And then, obviously, psychologically, we have to be brave and in and out of possession and brave in our approach to this game. And I'm confident that we can do that for sure. So then it's all about execution and the right moments and being difficult to beat. And then catching the team off guard in the right moments offensively, which we always try and do.
He is Coach Gary Higgins. Coach, best of luck on Friday at South Carolina. And I know you and your team will fight extremely hard. Looking forward to the next outing. Hopefully you guys come back with a win. Keep this thing going, but we're proud of you either way.
Thanks, Steven. I appreciate you, mate.
Absolutely. That is Gary Higgins, the head coach with ECU Women's Soccer, getting ready to take on the Gamecocks in their first ever NCAA tournament appearance in program history. All right, we'll come back. We'll get a break. We'll be joined by Kevin Monroe on the other side.
We're live with Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game.
Hoist the Johnny Roger!
Now, back to Hoist the Colors.
All right, welcome back in. Hoist the Colors on a Wednesday. We just talked some soccer with women's head coach Gary Higgins. They're off to the NCAA tournament, taking on South Carolina on Friday. On Thursday, we've got more ECU football. East Carolina will take on Tulsa back-to-back Thursday night games, this one on the road. We're joined weekly by Kevin Monroe, color analyst on the ECU Sports Network. He is back with us again. And, Kevin, the Pirates are humming pretty well under interim head coach Blake Harrell. Just let's get your initial thoughts coming out of the win over FAU last Thursday.
Yeah, you know what? It was exciting to have a first quarter where you put up 21 points and, not put the game out of reach, but you make it tough on FAU to stay in that ball game. And you add to that, you knock the starting quarterback out of the game. I think it was impressive the way that East Carolina got started. The first play of the game was a trick play, kind of a double reverse pass deal. that got some good yardage, and then you hurt a line of scrimmage and you go deep ball to Chase Sowell. And all of a sudden, you got this crowd that's just getting their seats good, going nuts. And I love the way that the Pirate students showed up. The boneyard was spread out over about 3 or 4 different sections, and the students were packed in there wearing their all black. That was cool. The regular fans maybe weren't quite in the numbers that you want, but it's a lot. It's like that a lot for night games. But just excited that the crowd that was there was loud. They were into the game, and the Pirates gave them a lot to cheer about. Caden Hauser, can't say enough about the job that he did. Didn't turn the football over the way he had, in the previous game, even though some of those weren't his fault. But he, another game where he had about 5 touchdown passes, throwing the ball to different guys. Winston Wright, I think, had a couple, but, mixing that thing up to Smith and Sowell and Jari Patterson, who's gotten a lot more involved. I like seeing him in the open field, the way he is able to elude tackles. So offensively, can't say enough about them. And the running game was there when we needed it. The Rajay and London and Marlon Gunn. So just excited that offensively things went really well. And then defensively, another week where the Pirates step up against the run game. We had another team that wanted to come in and establish the run, knowing that the Pirates were there. They made the plays. But the adding to that, the cherry on top was that, against Temple, you give up those deep balls and those explosion plays and touchdowns on the defensive backs, and that didn't happen this week. So defensively, thrilled that they didn't give up the huge explosion plays the way they had the week before. So all in all, solid performance by the Pirates.
We're visiting with Kevin Monroe, color analyst on the ECU Sports Network. And, yeah, Kevin, I guess the fans are having maybe I don't want to say a tough time diagnosing how exactly this offense has come to life. Like, is it all Caden Hauser? Is it the weak opponents? Is it, Mike Houston being gone and, like, John David Baker being able to call whatever he wants to call without any pressure? I don't know. Like, it's probably a combination of all of it to a degree, but do you feel like as you kind of evaluate it, it's one thing more than anything else, or is it truly kind of a combination of everything?
Well, certainly the weaker opponents plays a role. I think Coach Houston probably would have found a way to be in and win these last couple games. But to the way that we won them, as you said, the deep balls and the open playbook. I don't know what was holding us back before. Maybe it was the quarterback. I'm not really sure. But Caden certainly feels more comfortable back there. And again, Coach Houston made the move to change the Caden, so it's not like this is a Coach Harrell thing. But he's certainly coming to his own now. He seems to be a very accurate passer, the way he's putting pinpoint throws on these receivers. And so all in all, yeah, I think it's a little bit thing. I think the weaker opponents make things look better. But certainly the way this offense is playing makes things a lot easier on the defense and this team. They're also playing looser. They're playing more free. You can tell the personality of Coach Harrell, who's this rambunctious, excitable guy, is showing on his players because Coach Houston was an intense guy. I don't know if you necessarily call him a fun guy, and so Harrell is much more of a player's coach, and I think you can see that materializing on Thursday and Saturday.
Now the big test, Kevin, taking it on the road at Tulsa. And look, we know ECU football history, and you played in some of these games where you go on the road, there's not many fans there. We've seen ECU at times struggle in these situations. East Carolina, a big favorite in Vegas right now. That's a little worrisome. But, look, if ECU goes out and executes, I feel like there's a good shot they take care of business, win this game. But for me, the real test now, if Blake Harrell goes on the road and takes the same energy, same performance, and they continue to hum like this, that would show me a lot. I don't know. What are you expecting in this environment on Thursday at Tulsa?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult being on the road, a night game in Oklahoma. You've had to travel throughout Friday, and you sit around the hotel all day on Saturday, and it can be a lot, and then you don't get that energy from the stands that you're used to. I've said it a lot that I love playing in front of big crowds. I don't care if it was home or away because you get the energy from the crowd, good or bad. If they're booing you, you get that energy. If they're cheering for you, you get that energy. So there won't be a whole lot of that. I mean, Tulsa's not terrible with fans. They're not UAB playing, there in that big stadium in Birmingham. It's more like they've got their base. and it's a smaller stadium. It's just not a huge ton of fans, and they're not as loud and rambunctious as Pirate fans. So we'll see what that's like. But certainly taking this show on the road, being able to play offensively the way that Hauser and his offense has played, and then defensively to keep the ball in front of you and make tackles will be more of a task than it is at home, believe it or not, because it's just playing football. But things change on the road. It's just a little bit more difficult, different surroundings. So if he can do this, if he can go on the road and make it happen. I mean, people will still say weaker opponent. I want to see what he does against Navy and North Texas. But at least it shows he could also win on the road, and they will have, won 3 straight if he can find a way to win this one.
And, certainly the opponents may have something, Kevin, to do with how Caden Hauser is playing. But this run he's been on, I mean, the last 2 starts he's rushed, or he's thrown for 10 touchdowns. He's also ran for a score. If you go back to the Army game, in the second half going forward over those last 10 quarters, he's accounted for 15 touchdowns. And, look, I mean, there's a lot of talk about where ECU goes from here as far as the coaching staff. And if Caden keeps playing like this and he looks like the guy of the future and, you could potentially bring him back with this offense, I think that could play a role in what decision is made for the future of the program. Because if he's playing like this, you're probably not going to be able to upgrade the quarterback position with a new coach no matter who you bring in. I don't know, how much does AD John Gilbert have to weigh that if Caden Hauser keeps playing at this level?
Yeah, I think that, not that it would be the last thing on my mind, but you can certainly have more pressing positions you want to upgrade. You're going to lose a lot on the defensive line. You're going to get better on the offensive line. You want to get better in the secondary. You're going to lose a couple linebackers. So, yeah, I would focus on those areas and places like running back, wide receiver, and quarterback would not be on my list of things that need to be upgraded. So you would think that he'd feel pretty good about Caden. Now, again, he's going to have to play in some tougher scenarios. The Army game, he didn't play great in that first half, and so we'll see what that looks like against Navy and against North Texas, and then potentially in a bowl game. He's got to stay consistent. But, yeah, I think you've got a lot more to worry about, whether it's a new coach, whether it's Harrell, in terms of where you're upgrading your play at. I think he's shown that he can get it done. And more so than anything else for me, it's not necessarily the opponent. It's when you have open receivers, you find them and put the ball on them. It's John David Baker's job to have receivers open. It's his route combinations, it's his play calling that gets players open. You watch NFL games, yeah, you'll see, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes making pinpoint passes in tight places. But you'll also see a lot of guys being wide open. A lot of plays where the offensive coordinators just schemed it up to a way to get receivers open, and that's their job. And so when Caden Hauser is putting the ball on open receivers and not missing open receivers, that's what I look to say, okay, he can do this. He knows to make the right reads. He knows how to find the guys, and he can throw the ball to them accurately. And that's what I've seen over these last 10 quarters.
Absolutely, a lot of accurate balls from Caden for sure. All right, we joined by Kevin Monroe. A few more things for you, Kevin, who is the color analyst on the ECU Sports Network. And, we were talking about ECU favored to win at Tulsa. If they get this win, Kevin, it's win number 6. And I think when the move was made to dismiss Mike Houston, the thought was, all right, let's just find a way to get 3 wins, get these guys bowl eligible. So what would it mean to the seniors to get this win? And then if you already go ahead and secure bowl eligibility, there's still a very outside shot at the conference championship. It's a lot of things got to break your way. But if you could do this 3 for 3, how big of a deal would this be?
It's a huge deal. I think I think where we are as a program, where we had gotten as a program under Coach Houston prior to last year, under Coach Ruff, going back and Logan and all these coaches, was that we were a program that would start every season knowing that we were going to be at least bowl eligible, right? We're going to be a 6-win team, and every win after that was a bonus. And, if we have one of those magical years, we'll find our way in the top 20 or something like that. That's always been the goal, and try to get to a conference championship type scenario. And so when I played, we averaged 7 wins, and we had the big one with the 9-win season, but there was also an 8-win in there with the Liberty Bowl year, and we only still played in 2 bowl games, and that was a different time. You could win 8 games and still not make a bowl, depending on your situation. And so nowadays, to get bowl eligible and make it to that bowl game has to be the goal. It will make the seniors thrilled because they realize what it's like after last year to not go to a bowl game after having 2 straight. And so, yeah, I think that makes this season a win. And it also makes me thankful that the schedule was much weaker this year than it has been, because we needed this year of confidence, of figuring out this roster, of figuring out this coaching situation. Although, we may be brand new coaches all next year. Either way, for these seniors, it will be important to get bowl eligible and have an opportunity for a bowl game.
And do you think, Kevin, whether Blake Carroll, somehow gets the full-time job or it's a new coach, like to the coaching candidates out there, I would think the way ECU's playing right now and some of the talent they're showing, and who knows with the portal era how much will be back, but it's got to be pretty attractive. If you're let's say you're a coaching candidate interested in the job, to turn on a game on Thursday night and see ECU, playing how they are with the crowd support. I know it wasn't great all around the stadium, but still, you just let go of your coach a few weeks ago. Doesn't that make the job more attractive, you would think?
I think so. I think that certainly if you look at the on-the-field play here recently, you see a ton of athletes all over the field, some guys coming back. You see guys that are playing hard even though they're without their head coach. You see a lot of fight in them. And then, you look around the stadium, maybe it's not packed, but you see, a raucous crowd, that's loud, that's getting into the game. You see that support. I think that East Carolina has always been an attractive place for coaches. Maybe not at the highest levels. The coach is not going to choose us over Clemson or somebody like that. But certainly, in terms of schools that you would deem "quote unquote" mid-major, East Carolina is a school that you'd be drawn towards because of the fan base, because of the support, and because that it's a football school. Baseball may have an argument with that, but certainly basketball does not. And so, having that kind of environment as a head coach coming into this, knowing that they put football first, that's a big deal.
All right, let's get our end-of-season update on class of 2026. Athlete Marcus Monroe, 6'4", 200, just was named. I was looking at his Twitter page just now, Kevin. First team all-conference, Big East Independent Football Conference after a 50-catch, nearly 800-yard campaign with 9 touchdowns. I see he visited JMU. Over the weekend, you were telling me Penn State has invited him to a game. So what's going on with Marcus these days?
Yeah, things have really picked up, man. It's exciting. A ton of coaches, ton of schools in the last couple of weeks have reached out. Obviously, they're in the middle of their season, so there's not a whole lot of recruiting going on. But in terms of connecting on Twitter and emails and text messages, that's really picked up. And, he's earned it. I mean, he had a really good year. I mean, he came in with goals of having, 700 yards receiving and 5 touchdowns and, 40 catches or so. And he went above and beyond that. And so they made the playoffs. He's super thrilled. East Carolina still remains up there on his list of schools to go to, but we'll see how this all shakes out. But he's excited about the people that are recruiting him and the places that he's got a chance to go. I mean, Happy Valley, Penn State. I mean, that's pretty crazy. And so he's in this, and he's finished the football season now. He decided not to play basketball so he could focus on his training, and so he's at the gym every day working out, lifting weights, and working on his speed. So he'll be an even different player when he camps in the summer. So I'm excited for his future.
No doubt. Watching some of his highlights, he's got obviously great size, great hands. Kevin, did he get those hands from you or from mom?
Listen, mom was a dancer. We're not going to say he got them from mom. I had pretty good hands, but people always say, you play corner because you can't play receiver. I don't know if that's the case. I just like the physicality of playing defense. But yeah, he can catch the football.
No doubt. Looking forward to following his upcoming winter, spring and summer. We'll keep you posted there on 24/7 Sports Hoist the Colors. All right, Kevin, great as always to catch up with you. We'll talk next week, man.
Appreciate it, Igo.
That is Kevin Monroe, color analyst on the ECU Sports Network. Let's get a break in. We'll come back. We'll wrap up the show after this.
What's happening?
Tell me what's happening. Every ECU fan's one stop for all things ECU athletics. This is Hoist the Colors with Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game.
All right, welcome back in. Hoist the Colors, final segment here on this Wednesday edition of the show. We talked with Gary Higgins earlier. Philip, we've had this discussion a little bit off the air about the women's soccer team, but I'm not going to say that I'm predicting the win Friday at South Carolina, but I've got a good feeling they're going to make this thing very interesting, and it would not shock me if they pull it off, just because it feels like their style of play, their mentality is going to fit in real well in the postseason.
Yeah, I think so. The weird thing is, and you see it more, no, you don't see it in men's sports, but in women's sports, the top dogs and the bottom dogs, there's so much of a deficiency. You see first round NCAA tournament games being decided by 70 and 80 points on the women's basketball side. But when you look at the soccer side of things, it can happen too. You see it at the World Cup when the U.S. women's national team will play some of the third world countries. But I think Gary Higgins' style of defense and the ability of these defensive players, as well as Maeve English, is going to allow this team to be in this game. It's going to be tough to score a goal. You might have to do it in overtime again. You might have to do it in PKs. But when you're as good as they are defensively, they've played top 10 teams in the country in the Gary Higgins era and lost 1-0, lost 2-0. So it proves they can hang in games. All you got to do is clean up those one or two mistakes, and you're right there in a 0-0 game at the end of regulation.
Really looking forward to the contest. It'll be a 6 o'clock start at South Carolina ECU in the first round of the NCAA tournament in women's soccer. Quick look ahead to the college football slate this week before we wrap up the show, Philip. ECU all alone on Thursday night. No ESPN2 game. It is ECU Tulsa, baby, and I guess they are competing with the NFL, which is a pretty good contest. I want to say Commanders-Eagles.
Yeah, Bobby's going to have to dual screen it.
Yeah, that'll be a bit of a test for Bobby. We'll have to ask him Thursday how he feels about that. Friday, you've got North Texas, ECU's future opponent at UTSA. That's a sneaky big game in the American for two middle-of-the-pack teams. UCLA and Mr. LA, Deshaun Foster, has actually won a few games. They're at Washington. Houston's at Arizona. Looking ahead to the weekend, Clemson at Pittsburgh in a sneaky good game. Tulane at Navy, I'm intrigued by. And then you've also got the big one, of course, Tennessee and Georgia. So I don't know, any of those games get your attention, Philip? It's an okay slate college football-wise, but nothing remarkable.
Well, Tulane at Navy, because the loser is going to be out, right? They're going to not pretty much stand a chance to make the American Athletic Conference championship game. So I think that's a big one. But, yeah, it's weird. You got Kentucky and Alabama both playing FCS teams this late into the season, which is a bit odd. But, it's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be a 10 a.m. local start in Boulder. Utah's been struggling this year, but they're still a pretty good football team. They're going to 20th-ranked Colorado. It'll be interesting to see what happens there as the Utes and the Buffs do business.
Maybe the Utah AD can continue to politic and get the Big 12 to take down the Buffaloes. SMU, by the way, trying to make the ACC championship game. They host Boston College, big favorites. Go to Virginia and then close out the season against Cal. Hard to believe they're in that position, but they are. All right. Outside of that, we'll see what happens. It's a okay weekend in college football. And we're out of time. We got to get out of here. Appreciate you, Philip. We'll be back Thursday, 12 noon, live from Tulsa, game day edition of Hoist the Colors. See you then.